Hey everyone, it's JDOmnislash back again to give you another fresh installment of the Niche Nook, where we take a look back at some of the more obscure titles of gaming's past. Titles that may not have broken the bank, but still left enough of an impression to maintain a cult following among gamers. Today, we'll be talking about a PS1 game that may not be considered a classic all around, but it definitely garnered enough attention to be worth talking about now. That game is Ehrgeiz. God bless the ring. What was first released as an arcade game developed by Dream Factory and published by Namco in 1998, was then ported to the PlayStation 1 later the same year, with this version being published by Squaresoft, now known as Square Enix, of course. Ehrgeiz, which is German for ambition, is a very interesting title that's hard to define in a few short sentences. On one hand, it's a 3D fighting game with some wrestling elements thrown in. On the other hand, it's also got a dungeon crawler RPG included. And on the other hand, it also includes a bunch of odd minigames thrown into the already strange mix. So what's this title all about? Well, the best way to describe it is its sections. The first is Ehrgeiz itself. What you're given is a strange but somewhat functional 3D fighter, bearing similarities to games such as Tobal, Soul Calibur, Power Stone, and even some wrestling titles. It honestly looks really nice, especially for its time. The controls, however, are a bit more of a mixed bag. Being able to run in any direction is nice, but blocking, dodging, and aiming are all very loose and hard to get the hang of at first. Keep in mind, however, that this was before everyone moved on to the DualShock controllers with analog sticks, though you at least had the option to use one in this game, which is a plus. The fixed camera can also lead to some confusing angles sometimes. With that said, it's all manageable with a little practice. The game is arguably unbalanced, or, in my opinion, it's just really unbalanced. What with some characters using projectile weapons while others use really large swords and staffs. But to me, it's really no more obnoxious than a bunch of other popular fighting games out there already, so it would be pretty hypocritical of me to judge it over that. The story isn't too much to talk about either, but it serves its purpose well enough. You fight to the end and try to collect a sword that can grant you the powers of a god, yada yada yada. The game also has full motion video, that's FMV, cutscenes for each main character, similar to the ones that you saw in games like Tekken not long before. They look really great, and do an excellent job of adding elements to each character's personality. But let's be honest here, we know that that's not the real reason you've heard of this game or wanted to play it, and it's certainly not because it was developed by the makers of the Tobal series. No, don't lie. Don't lie! No, we know that the real reason is something much more specific. Something much more cloudy. No, your eyes aren't deceiving you. Those are Final Fantasy VII characters you're seeing in this game. Cloud, Tifa, Yuffie, Vincent, Zack, and Sephiroth to be exact. While they don't really add anything to the game's main story, it obviously doesn't matter. I mean, you're getting to play a 3D fighter with Final Fantasy VII characters. Are you not entertained? Is this not why you're here? Truth be told, once that wow factor wears off, you're not getting much more out of the whole experience. For one thing, at least two of the characters, in this case Vincent and Zack, are complete gameplay clones of God Hand and Cloud, respectively. There is also something really odd, but amusing about watching Cloud and Sephiroth fight with punches and kicks, even if the swords are still an option. Fans may also be surprised to hear that Nobuo Uematsu and Tetsuya Nomura both worked on this game, with Nobuo designing all the characters and Tetsuya supervising all the music. On top of that, the game was designed by Seiichi Ishii of both Tekken and Virtua Fighter. Hey, trivia! Outside of the arcade mode, there's not a lot to delve into with the fight engine itself. You've got a practice mode, but that's about it. Normally I'd be more critical of something like that, but there's obviously a lot more content included on this disc, so I'm willing to let it slide a bit. Next, let's talk about the minigames. Using the same characters as the main game, you can have each character compete in a survival mode called Infinity Battle, racing around a small course, complete with laps in Battle Runner, button mashing races on a beach in Beach Battle, and finally, Panel Battle, putting you on a life-sized Othello board that you have to run over and hit the proper squares to win over your opponent. The latter is probably the most creative of the bunch, though there's not much here to really tide you over for long. With that said, I have to admit, I got a kick out of watching Sephiroth win a capture the flag race on the beach. Come at me, bro. The next thing to go into is the game's quest mode. Those familiar with the Tobal series know exactly what's going on here. You're placed into a randomly generated dungeon crawler RPG with weapons, armor, and materia to control magic with. It all sounds pretty cool on paper, though one could argue that the combat system has not aged very well. You have an attack button, a magic button, a jump button, and a block button with very little options surrounding them. You have to make sure that your character is eating enough, on top of keeping their health up with potions. You also have to keep an eye on your weapons, which are all breakable after a few minutes of slashing monsters. Once again, there's a pretty big learning curve to attacking at the right times, as well as maintaining your health meters and equipment. With all of that said, there is nothing like the feeling of putting all that skill together and finally defeating a boss monster that you were stuck at for a good long time while grinding. And you know something? Despite all its flaws, I'm still having fun with it. And I'm not just saying that because it's got my boy Cloud in there. No, the gameplay variety between the fighter and the quest mode really helped keep me interested. When I would get tired of one, I would just switch over to the other, and I'd still feel entertained for a while. I first came into this because of the Final Fantasy VII cameos. Admit it, you did the same thing. But I came out of it feeling pretty content about the whole thing, even if it was just a messy little bit of fun that we got. I would grade it more like a 7.5 or so for the value that you get for it. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Niche Nook. If you liked what you saw and heard, please remember to hit those like and subscribe buttons below for more awesome games and fun! I also have a Twitch channel and even a Patreon if you're feeling real generous today. As always, thanks for watching, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you all later.